There was an excellent article that appeared today in The Hill, and it's the title of it says Congress implies UFOs have non-human origins, and it's actually a very excellent article, and we're going to get into it in a minute. I'm going to give you my opinion about the things that are stated in it. But actually, Lou Elizondo actually commented on this article today on Twitter, and he said, despite the naysayers and deniers, thankfully, Congress is doing the right thing. A big thank you to The Hill, Dean Johnson, and many others we work with, despite the petty drama created by attention seekers. Okay, and anyway, this article, it's written by Marek von Rennenkampf. He's an opinion contributor, and basically the Hill does point out that this is the views of the contributor and not necessarily their own views of the Hill. But anyway, this is an excellent piece, and I'm going to go through this opinion piece, and we'll talk about it as we go through it. It states, in Congress, where legislation is drafted, debated, and enacted, clear and concise definitions are of paramount importance. As military air crews increasingly encounter unidentified flying objects, lawmakers recently made several striking revisions to the definition of UFO. Key among them, the explosive implication that some UFOs have non-human origins. As first reported by researcher Douglas Johnson, a draft bill approved unanimously by the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence rebrands UFOs as unidentified aerospace undersea phenomena. Expanding the definition to include objects in space and under the oceans significantly broadens the scope of a muscular new office tasked by Congress with investigating UFOs. The revised definition of UFO also includes transmedium objects which, according to lawmakers, transition between space and the atmosphere or between the atmosphere and bodies of water. In short, members of a key national security-focused committee believe that objects of unknown origin are demonstrating remarkably advanced technology by moving seamlessly between space, air, and water. A report accompanying the legislation notes that, quote, transmedium threats to United States national security are expanding exponentially, end quote. Okay, let's just talk about that little bit there. Yes, we are. As you can see, Congress, they're starting to realize, people in Congress, and I'm assuming a lot of this probably comes from the closed-door meetings with some Pentagon officials, and and I'm sure some of these people are in contact with people that are maybe some of the whistleblowers that Gary Nolan's been talking about. There's just too much out there. There's just too much evidence anymore to deny that there's something going on, that there's something here, that there is a presence here. We have military personnel. We have some people saying that they deal with these things on a daily basis. Flying missions out over the sea, training exercises, and they see these things on a regular daily basis. What they're up to, what they're doing. I mean, that remains to be discovered, but a lot of us have our ideas about that. Anyway, let's continue. It says here, it strains credulity to believe that lawmakers would include such extraordinary language in public legislation without compelling evidence. Perhaps members have seen the classified sensor data that prompted former President Trump's Director of National Intelligence to state that UFOs exhibit, quote, technologies that we don't have and that we are not capable of defending against, among several other eyebrow-raising comments. Most strikingly, Congress's new definition of UFO excludes man-made objects. So there you go. Congress is aware. There are people in Congress who are aware that these things are obviously not man-made. How could they be? We don't have that kind of technology that could, do the things that these things have been reported as, doing. I mean, it's just impossible. We're just not there yet. We're just not, how many, steps of evolutionary progress are we behind? It has to, who knows? But it's a lot. I mean, we're just not there yet. I mean, these beings, in addition to the stuff with the craft that they fly around, and they also have other abilities that seem to us, because to us, we're just basically low-grade morons, really, when you really think about it, because we can't, I mean, how do they perform these abductions so secretly and all these decades, right? All these people aren't lying, right? There's been evidence that's been collected that it is happening, and there's been objects removed from these people, implants that were put there by these aliens that don't make any sense, right? So there's something that they have technology, these things, to do things that defies anything that we know about in science, as far as we know. It's actually one of the reasons why scientists have a problem many scientists have a problem trying to talk about this, because, it's above their pay grade. Anyway, continuing, it says, over the last 7 decades, most UFO sightings involved man-made objects such as misidentified aircraft, balloons, satellites, or drones. Yet now, according to Congress, man-made objects should not be considered under the definition as unidentified aerospace undersea phenomena. Moreover, in a congressional directive, objects identified by the new UFO office as man-made will be passed to appropriate Department of Defense and Intelligence Community offices for further analysis. Congress, in short, is forcing the government to focus on objects that are not man-made. So that's very interesting. So, anything that it could possibly be, from some other nation, from China, say, okay, well that's okay. The Department of Defense, you look at that. However, their new UFO office, Arrow, you look at this stuff that is obviously not man-made. Okay, we need to figure out what's going on here. Now, let's just stop here for a second, because who are we fooling, right? At the same time, right, there are people in the Pentagon that know this for a fact, right? I mean, in a way, this article is playing a little bit of a game here, because there has to be, right? There would have to be. We talk about this all the time on this podcast. There would have to be some office out there that is completely, utterly aware that some of these things are definitely not man-made and are definitely extraterrestrial. They have the proof. There's people that actually know this. And again, what we just talked about earlier about the potential whistleblowers coming out and providing information, maybe we'll find that out. But again, Congress, we're moving to a point here where, unlike any point in history, really, unlike any point in history, although I still fear that the Pentagon might try to pull the rug out from under this, but hopefully the Pandora's box is open enough that that's going to be impossible. But anyway, let's continue here with this article. It says, imagine that the new UFO office identifies a highly advanced drone flying in sensitive airspace. Under the draft legislation, regardless of the drone's origin, be it Chinese, Russian, or otherwise, the UFO office must immediately stop investigating and hand the case over to another government entity. This implies that members of the Senate Intelligence Committee believe, on a unanimous bipartisan basis, that some UFOs have non-human origins. After all, why would Congress establish and task a powerful new office with investigating non-man-made UFOs if such objects did not exist? Make no mistake, one branch of the American government implying that UFOs have non-human origins is an explosive development. It is also part of a remarkable shift in official attitudes toward UFOs. So basically, people in Congress are, they don't talk about these things publicly a lot. They talk about it. They're talking like the old political speak when they get on TV. Not many of them really go too far. Some of them do, right? Some of them are making some statements, implications that these things are obviously not from this world. Some of them, but they don't really talk about it that much. But privately, they've probably seen enough now that they're pretty certain that there are things going on. What does this mean? I guess that one of the concerns in Congress would have to be, what does it mean when this information does come out? I mean, there has to be a concern there, but that's for another day. Let's continue reading this. It says here, in the late 1940s and early 1950s, many senior government officials believed that UFOs had interplanetary origins. And we'll just stop there for a second. In fact, I just did a podcast about this. In the 50s, the former retired Marine Corps Major Donald Kehoe actually wrote some books about this. And actually in his book Flying Saucers from Outer Space, he talked about that. Yes, there were people who thought this that it was interplanetary. There was actually the first known official investigation by the Air Force called Project Sign. They determined in the estimate of the situation that there was a paper prepared called the Estimate of the Situation that these things were interplanetary. It was the only explanation that they had. But people up in the higher echelons of the Pentagon, no, that can't be it. So that document, the estimate of the situation, has been never been made public, but it's been talked about. We know that it did exist, right? So that was the determination made by people in the Air Force under Project Sign. So what happened after that? They got rid of Project Sign. They dissolved it, and then they started this other project, Project Grudge, which the whole purpose of Project Grudge was to set out to try to debunk the whole phenomenon. That didn't work out either, because even though it did come out with this determination that it's of debunking the whole thing, that there's nothing to it, they had to get back into it and that's when Project Blue Book came about, because the UFOs didn't go away. Things didn't work out for the Pentagon at the time. They just UFOs stuck around and kept on doing things, like showing up over Washington D.C. in 1952, flying over the White House and the Capitol. But anyway, continuing. But a series of still unexplained encounters in the summer of 1952 sparked Cold War national security fears among defense and intelligence agencies, just like I was talking about. As a result, the United States government initiated a campaign to debunk and discredit all UFO sightings, no matter how credible. For decades, officials mocked any suggestion that UFOs had extraterrestrial origins. Now, I will say this, that's semi-true. I mean, yes, Project Blue Book set out to debunk it too, right? But before that, they were already trying to do that. That's what Project Grudge was all about. Project Blue Book, they had to come out with Project Blue Book, and basically that was a device to quell concerns from the public about these things. It was, they would investigate civilian witness accounts, and they did that until the late 1960s. And that was an effort to debunk it. That's what it was. It was always to try to find an explanation, no matter what Blue Book was. And then anyway, he writes, okay, let me just read that last sentence again. As a result, the United States government initiated a campaign to debunk and discredit all UFO sightings, no matter how credible. For decades, officials mocked any suggestion that UFOs had extraterrestrial origins. Not anymore. In discussions and interviews, NASA Administrator Bill Nelson suggested that UFOs encountered by military air crews in recent years have otherworldly origins. NASA, it should be noted, is proceeding full force on an unprecedented scientific study of UFOs. Former CIA Director John Brennan stated that UFOs might constitute a different form of life. According to James Woolsey, a fellow ex-CIA director, something is going on that is surprising to experienced pilots. As Top Gun trained aviators remain convinced that they observed objects not of this world, Director of National Intelligence Avril Haines, America's top spy, has not ruled out extraterrestrial origins for UFOs. Moreover, former President Clinton refers reflexively to the high likelihood of otherworldly life in the universe when asked about UFOs. For his part, former President Obama speculated openly about contact with extraterrestrial life when asked about recent military UFO encounters. I'm not going to read the rest of this, but I would check it out if you're interested. Yeah, so there we are. We are at a place that we were never at before with regard to this. And, I think that, with Congress looking at things the way they are now, a lot of people are, they want to try to get this out there. They want more information on this. But again, this has always been a concern to the Pentagon. Anybody who studied this, right? The Pentagon has been covering this up for decades. For decades and decades and decades. And so, and people know this, that it seems like people in Congress are aware of this. And basically they're trying to force the Pentagon's hands with regard to how they, with regard to UFOs. And we need to have this, we need to end this. We need to end this nonsense here. We need to stop it. I mean, it's time to understand more. It's time that the people of the world, it's not just the American people, it's everybody. Everybody needs to know what our governments know about this, right? Okay, I get it. You want to reverse engineer this stuff. Okay, don't tell us about that stuff, but hey, at least admit that you got the stuff, right? Right? I understand you don't have to give us the ins and outs of what you've learned by trying to reverse engineer these things over decades. That's okay. Keep that to yourself. Keep that top secret, right? But however, you got to share the rest of it with us. There's beings from other worlds coming here, man. I mean, this is big news. It's always been big news. It's the biggest story ever. Now, I see people online, like even today on Twitter, there's a lot of people out there who are just toxic to this whole story, the whole UFO. They don't bring anything to the table except vitriol. For instance, there's this the New York Post writer Stephen Greenstreet. He talks about UFOs, that it's not an important subject, and he's making fun of Skinwalker Ranch. He thinks that's a joke and everything. And the whole thing is though what he does by doing this is like Skinwalker Ranch is only one little remnant of this whole phenomenon. There's a lot of different facets to this. Right. I mean, whether there's Skinwalker Ranch is some UFO hotspot or not, whether people see strange animals there or not, that's not that's only one little facet of this thing. But his focus is on that kind of stuff. He had a video about 3 months ago where he talked about. It was produced by the New York Post. It had really good, video quality. It was a very well produced looking video where he's talking about all these problems with Lou Elizondo and the A-tip story and all that kind of stuff. And one of the big problems that he points out, right? This is just one little issue I have with someone like Greenstreet. One of the issues he points out is that the name of the A-tip, the acronym for A-tip, if you were to read the whole thing out, and different news reports, like starting in 2017 from different news outlets, like some people said it was advanced aerial threat, and instead of advanced aerospace, like he was pointing this out, like this was a big deal, like this was like spooky and really proves something. Well, it really proves nothing. I mean, actually, what is? I mean, I don't even know. I'm speaking in here right now. I can't tell you. I mean, what does A-tip stand for? I need to look it up right now because I don't remember. Because every time, to me, right, A-tip is like it's like a cell phone number. If you were to, you could remember A-tip. That's no problem, right? But if you were to try to spell it out, you need to look it up again because it's a mouthful. Okay, Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. I can't remember that all the time. I need to look it up, right? He was trying to point out in his well-produced, video made with money from the New York Post, right? That's all mysterious because all these different news outlets, Politico, the New York Times, some of them said it was Advanced Aerial Threat Identification Program, while some of them said it was Advanced Aerospace. Well, which one is it? How come they kept making a mistake with that? Well, obviously what happened here is that the mistake was made because it's a mouthful. It's a lot to remember. Either a reporter could have easily made a mistake. The person telling him, even if it was Elizondo, he might have, because he was probably used to using the just A-tip for years, that anybody could have made a mistake. It was just nothing. It was a giant nothing burger, but he made a big deal about this. And see, that kind of vitriol, this vitriolic attack against UFOs, it's not going to bode well for people like this. And when this all comes out at the end, they're going to look like fools, actually. They're going to look like fools. I mean, I know for a fact that there's something going on. I talk about this all the time. I've had my own experiences. I've seen one of these craft in 1994 up close. I know for a fact that there was no way it was man-made. No way. Right? And one of these beings, when I was a kid, showed up in my bedroom, right? It only had 3 fingers on its hand, right? It was not human, right? It was not human. So these things are out there. Now, I know people like this and all the debunkers out there, they don't, they need more. They're going to get more. They're going to get more at some point here, right? Whether it's going to be through this whistleblower deal or somehow, or something's going to happen, right? At some point, they're going to get the information they want, and then they're going to look back at what they're doing now. They're going to be like, oh God. Like Stanton Friedman liked to point out, I mean, there was some guy back right a week or two before the Wright brothers flew in Kitty Hawk, their first flight. There was some well-known astronomer, some physicist back, a week and a half before that saying that will never happen. No one will ever fly a plane. And then all of a sudden somebody flied a plane. And so then the guy doubled down on his ridiculous statements and said, well, there'll never be passenger planes. You'll never have more than one or two people on it. How did that fare? I don't even know the guy's name. It's not worth looking up. That's what it's going to be like for these guys. It's not even worth looking. It's not even going to be worth looking up their names when it's all said and done. They're on the wrong side. They're on the wrong side of reality when it comes to the UFO situation, folks. And it looks like Congress knows what the right, bipartisan, which is nice. I mean, right now, especially, right? I've never seen such a divided Congress in my life. But at least when it comes to UFOs, right, they seem to be on the same page. And they're tired of it too. They're tired of the cover up too, obviously. So hopefully things are going to change here with this pretty soon. So, and then one more suggestion again: if you're on the wrong side of this, it's time to rethink your situation, because you're wrong. You're wrong. I know that for a fact. Again, I have an ace up my sleeve though. I know I saw these things, so I know something's here. So you're wrong. Sorry.